beautiful gospel, challenging. It calls us to be faithfully different. Different because, well, the gospel is challenging. And there's this theme, I guess it's in the water, you could say, in our culture that we just have to be nice. We can't ever critique or disagree with someone. And you can see the problems if you did this all the time, if you kind of gave someone a verbal punch in the face, so to speak. That would not be charitable, that would not be helpful. Even if you were trying to bring them the truth, you don't want to overwhelm people. But I think the contrary is also bad, which is never say anything that would get someone upset, lest they think less of you. I look at myself, and I felt the need, if you'd missed it already, to explain that I had a COVID exposure, that I've tested negative, that I don't have a temperature or symptoms, but I'm wearing this out of prudence. But I don't want you to think I'm somehow making some political statement. But why do I care? What if I just wore this and let you thought what you thought? That wouldn't change the reality of why I'm wearing it. But I guess I care, A, because I don't want to cause unnecessary questions. But maybe I do care what you think. And Jesus comes to us today, and he says, "Woe to you when all speak well of you. For their ancestors treated the false prophets in this way." This is the conclusion of the gospel today, the presentation of Jesus, his sermon on the plain, Plain, a flat level of ground. And Jesus, it says, raises his eyes to his disciples. And he says these beautiful things: 4 blessings and 4 woes that if you put together are the same content as the 8 Beatitudes, essentially. But the 8 Beatitudes are in Matthew. This is the Gospel of Luke. And that last line is so challenging. I'm not aware of anywhere else in the Scriptures that Jesus basically says, if everyone thinks you're great, you're probably a faker. Because you're not being authentic enough to have a healthy disagreement or a healthy conflict, because humanity is inevitably going to have conflict. And there's maybe out of whatever family of origin, whatever need to avoid certain anxieties, all this, we may instinctively avoid conflict. But even like teams and sociologists, psychologists, all this would say that, like even in a business setting, if you can't have healthy conflict, then you don't trust the people you're with. You're walking on eggshells. You're just avoiding reality. And this is not good. And it's also not good to, I guess, just pretend Jesus didn't say these things. He says things that are really challenging. He says, "Blessed are you who are poor. Blessed are you who are now hungry. Blessed are you who are now weeping and sad. Blessed are you when people hate you, when they exclude and insult you and denounce your name as evil on account of the Son of Man." We are called to receive these words. The church in her wisdom gives them to us today. A day which many of us will watch the Super Bowl, and I hope it's enjoyable. I hope it's a good game and maybe a good time with friends. But if you're hungry at a Super Bowl party, it's probably not a good party. And I would ask you, do you think that any of the advertisements or any of the messaging is going to be saying a similar message to what Jesus is offering us today? Will those advertisements say it's good to embrace poverty? It's good to weep? It's good to be hated, excluded, misunderstood, and denounced? It's just a countercultural message that Jesus has. And the good news is that we can receive this not as sort of a death sentence, a timeline in which future people will cancel us. That's one way of looking at this. But a much holier, a much healthier way of looking at it is that we are essentially different. We are called to be faithful in our difference. And this is a great freedom for us, because it means that as Catholic Christians, our identity, our sense of self-worth, our sense of esteem as persons has really nothing to do with what the wider world says of us. We are therefore free. We are not dependent on the approval of others. We don't need their affirmation. If it comes, that may be a bonus. But God, in His love, is the source of our identity. And so, we can be there for people even when they misunderstand us. When they hate us, we can love them. When they think that we hate them because we're articulating a truth that is countercultural, we can lean into that tension and charitably, not with some smug, holier-than-thou attitude, but with an authentic smile, we can say, you know what? It's clear we're not understanding each other, but this is who I am, and I hope you can at least respect that. I respect you, but these things are different. There's a worldview in our world that tends to dominate, that says, well, diversity is good unless your opinion is making someone feel uncomfortable or judged. And we don't want that type of diversity. And that doesn't seem very honest or authentic. That seems very constricting and very unhealthy. And so again, we can be faithfully different. And the Super Bowl can be a test case for us. For instance, if there's a message on an advertisement or at a halftime show or something like that seems out of sorts with what we should be consuming or what, maybe our family, if we have kids especially, should be seeing, we can go there. It may be a little awkward to do something like say, hey, maybe we should change the channel right now. We can come back to this later. There's, for instance, in anywhere in society, on social media, whatever, people who are so looking for attention and affirmation that anyone may use their body, which is beautiful, as an object. And we can even just call it for what it is. We can say, again, it's just really helpful if there's little ones in the midst. We can say, look, that person is beautiful, but they're using their body as an object, and we don't need to indulge them in that. They're worth more respect than that. They're not going to be happy by doing this. So let's just turn it off for now, and we can come back, if necessary, later. This is really simple, but we don't have to think of it. I think for many years of my life, I just sort of gave my moral sensibility, I gave it away to the dominant advertisements and themes in media, in songs, in pop culture, and even to just the sort of the producers who put all this together. And that's what I did, because I wasn't willing to be faithfully different. I had to be like everybody else because I didn't know who I was. I didn't know that God loved me, and that love made me different, and the difference is good. We need to be different. If we were all the same, we would be robots. I don't like this trend toward more robots in society, more robotic humanity. That doesn't seem good enough for me or for you. And so let us deeply ponder these words of Jesus. Let us embrace the goodness that comes when we're lacking, when we're hungry, when we're weeping, when we're misunderstood. It's an opportunity to say, you know what? They do not define me. But I love them. I care for them. I want them to know the truth. And the truth is, woe to you when all speak well of you. For their ancestors treated the false prophets in this way. I'll conclude with just a human story that when I was in my early 20s, someone who really cared enough for me pulled me aside and said, look like you need me to tell you this verse from Jesus. You look like you can't handle it if someone doesn't like you. And they were right. And it was really hard for me to hear that. It's still kind of a journey I'm working on. I think it's a human journey we're all on. But we can be free of this. We can then be prophetic to something that is authentic. Authentically human and holy and eternal. And so let us be faithfully different. Let us be more than nice. Let us be loving.